Forcados High School was already alive before the first bell rang. The school grounds buzzed with the energy of students returning for their final year, some reuniting with hugs and loud slaps on the back, others slipping back into the routine with weary smiles. Teachers walked briskly past rows of trimmed hedges and the hallways filled with sneakers squeaking against polished tiles. It was the beginning of something big, especially for Jimi Solade. Tall, charming, and effortlessly popular, Jimi wasn't just another student, he was Forcados' golden boy. He made top grades, captained the football team, and somehow managed to remain likable without being arrogant. Teachers trusted him. Students admired him. Life, it seemed, had carved a perfect path beneath his feet. His two closest friends completed the trio that ruled the senior class. Ansa Begbe, quiet and deeply artistic, had been Jimi's neighbor and best friend since childhood. He painted his thoughts more than he spoke them. Then there was Nene Ekpo, firm in her Christian beliefs and sharper than any textbook. Her affection for Jimi was no secret, though she played it safe, never quite admitting how much she cared. This was supposed to be their best year. Final exams were months away, and there was a sense of urgency mixed with excitement in every conversation. Yet, something shifted the moment Afua Coker stepped through the gates of Forcados High. She arrived without warning, tall, dark-skinned, and graceful in a way that didn't need effort. Her eyes, cool and steady, gave away nothing. She didn't smile much. She didn't join in group gossip. She didn't care for boys tripping over themselves to impress her. Rumors spread quickly. Some said she had been expelled from her last school for fighting. Others whispered about strange family troubles. But Jimi noticed her. At first, it was curiosity. Afua didn't look at him like the others did. She didn't laugh at his jokes or light up when he passed. She kept her head down, her face unreadable. And to Jimi, who was used to being the center of everyone's attention, this was intriguing. Nene, ever thoughtful, took the first step to welcome Afua. She invited her to join them during break, tried including her in conversations, but Afua remained cautious, holding her past like a shield no one could break through. "She's not rude," Nene said later, "just careful." "She's hiding something," Ansa added. "I think she's been hurt." Jimi didn't speak, but in his mind, Afua had become a puzzle, and he intended to solve it. Meanwhile, life at home was quietly unraveling. Jimi's mother had grown weaker by the week. At first, it was little things, missing a dinner, resting more often. But soon, she was spending more time in bed than out of it. Ovarian cancer. The words came like a whisper and landed like thunder. Jimi tried to stay strong, clinging to his studies, his friends, even football. But the world inside his home was crumbling. His father remained distant, always at work, always serious, always angry. Ever since Wole, Jimi's older brother, had been disowned for stealing from the family business, their father had turned colder. Wole had vanished for over a year, and in that silence, the family turned brittle. One evening, Wole returned. It was unexpected. He arrived like a storm, smiling, confident, with sunglasses on and money in his pockets. Their father refused to speak to him, but their mother, lying on the couch with a scarf wrapped around her thinning hair, opened her arms. "Let him stay," she said softly, "at least for now." Wole brought energy to the house, but not the good kind. He offered Jimi beer when their father wasn't home. He smoked. He laughed too loudly. He asked for money and never explained why. And somehow, Jimi didn't push back. He was tired, And part of him missed the days when Wola was just his big brother, not a shadow hanging over their family. Back at school, the situation grew more complicated. Jimi began to slip. He missed assignments. He forgot to prepare for tests. Nene noticed, and when she confronted him, he brushed her off with a fake smile. "I'm fine," he said, "just tired." But it wasn't just tiredness. It was fear, confusion, grief, and deep beneath it, the weight of trying to be perfect while everything around him shattered. Efua, too, was changing. She had slowly begun opening up to Miss Agbenenovi, the French teacher who saw through the walls Efua had built. Miss Novi treated her with patience, gave her books, involved her in volunteer work. For the first time, Efua smiled without being forced. She found purpose in writing essays, leading social projects, and spending quiet moments in the library. Yet even then, she kept Jimi at arm's length. He tried to get her attention, inviting her to the school dance, complimenting her in the hallway. But Efua refused to be part of his spotlight. She wasn't interested in being the girl who caught the golden boy. At midterm dinner, everything went wrong. The hall was decorated with ribbons and lights. Students danced, laughed, took photos. Jimi, dressed in his best blazer, tried once again to approach Efua, but she refused to dance. When he tried to make a joke of it, wine spilled on her dress. She stood frozen, mortified, and stormed out. Later, Ansa would say it was an accident. Nene would call it careless. But for Efua, it was one more moment of humiliation, another reminder that she didn't belong. After the midterm dinner, Forcados High returned to routine, but something in Jimi had cracked. His once unshakable calm was now brittle. The boy who once breezed through lessons with a grin began slipping into class late, his work rushed, his voice quieter. His teachers noticed, his friends noticed, even he noticed, but it felt easier to let go than to fight. At home, his mother's health worsened. She no longer got out of bed. The cancer had taken her appetite, her strength, and now even her voice seemed far away. Jimi spent evenings beside her, sometimes silent, sometimes reading from her favorite books just to fill the air. His father rarely joined them, burying himself in work and silence. Grief lived in every room like dust that never settled. Vol, ever the storm, brought new chaos. Though their father had warned him to keep a low profile, Vole did the opposite. He swaggered in and out of the house, dressed in flashy clothes, always on the phone with business partners. One night, he tossed Jimi a bottle of beer and a cigarette, laughing when Jimi hesitated. "Come on, you're not a baby," Vole said. "You think I got through this world playing by the rules?" Against his better judgment, Jimi drank. It didn't take long before the drinking crept into his weekends, then weekdays. His grades tumbled further. Nene tried to reach him. Ansa tried to talk. But Jimi's pride wouldn't let him admit how lost he was. Instead, he pushed them away. "I'm handling it," he said, though everything was slipping through his fingers. Meanwhile, Efua Coker was building her own fragile peace. She had found a kindred spirit in Miss Novi. The teacher saw something in her that others ignored, a fierce intelligence, a quiet strength. With Miss Novi's encouragement, Efua joined a campaign focused on girls' education and abuse awareness. It felt good to matter, to stand for something, but peace never lasted long. One afternoon, the school's chemistry lab was broken into. Several pieces of expensive equipment went missing. Panic spread through the staff. The principal, Mr. Malum, called an emergency meeting, and within hours, suspicion fell on a name that shocked the school. Jimi Solade, He had been entrusted with the key to the lab, an honor given only to the most responsible prefects. But now, that trust had shattered. The key had been taken from his bag. There were no fingerprints, no witnesses, but all eyes turned to him. Jimi knew who had done it. Whoa! He'd seen the signs, the nervous glances, the missing key, the sudden influx of cash. But Wall was his. Brother, his mother, still clinging to life, had begged them to stay united, so Jimi said nothing. He accepted the punishment, a formal warning, loss of prefect duties, public shame. He walked the hallways under a cloud of whispers. He heard the laughter behind his back, the pity in his teachers' voices. Even Nene, hurt by his silence, could barely look at him. Ansa, though loyal, was confused. "Why won't you explain?" Jimi could only shake his head. "Some things are better left buried." Then came the final blow. Nene found the letter. It was meant for Miss Novi, written by Efua. In it, Efua had poured her heart out, thanking the teacher for saving her. She spoke of love, not romantic but emotional, the kind a broken girl feels for the first adult who sees her as human. But Nene, angry and wounded, read it with suspicion. "She's in love with a teacher," she told Ansa. "Miss Novi might be inappropriate." Ansa wasn't so sure. "You're reading too much into it." But it was too late. The letter fell into the hands of Jolly Stevens, a boy with a smirk too wide and a love for drama. He photocopied it, distributed copies across the school. In a matter of hours, the school was buzzing. "Efua's sleeping with Miss Novi. She wrote her love letters. She's crazy. No wonder she got expelled." The rumors exploded. Mr. Mallam summoned both Efua and Miss Novi to his office. The tension was thick. Efua, usually guarded, stood firm. Miss Novi's voice didn't shake. "This is a misunderstanding," she said clearly. "Efua has experienced trauma. She sees me as a mentor, nothing more." Silence. Then Efua spoke. For the first time, openly, painfully, she told the truth. Her stepfather had abused her. That's why she had been withdrawn from her last school. That's why she flinched at certain voices, refused hugs, avoided crowds. That's why Miss Novi's kindness had mattered so much. It had been the first kindness in a long, dark time. There was no romance, only rescue. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at Forcados shifted. Some students apologized. Others stayed quiet, ashamed. Miss Novi's name was cleared, but the damage lingered. Efua's mother, upon hearing everything, decided to transfer her daughter again. "It's for your safety," she said. Efua didn't argue. She had fought too many battles to stay where she wasn't wanted. Before she left, she wrote Jimi a note. She didn't say goodbye in person. She simply left the letter on his desk in the empty classroom. "Thank you," it said, "for being kind when I least expected it. You are better than you think." The weeks after Efua's departure passed slowly, like the air had thickened. Forcados High School settled into a quiet hush. The drama had faded, the gossip thinned, but something in the spirit of the place had changed. A weight lingered, unspoken, but felt. For Jimi Solade, the silence was a kind of penance. He read Efua's letter over and over in the evenings, long after the lights were off in his house. Her words, simple, sincere, hit harder than all the gossip and rumors ever had. She had seen something in him he hadn't seen in himself. Not just the golden boy, not the charming athlete or the smart student, but the boy behind the silence, behind the grief. He hadn't told anyone yet, but his mother had died. She passed away quietly one night just after dinner. Jimi had been reading to her an old childhood book she once loved. She'd smiled, closed her eyes, and didn't open them again. They buried her a few days later. The house turned quieter than ever. His father didn't speak much, not out of cruelty, but because words had dried up. Wole had vanished again. And Jimi had to learn how to live with absence. At school, Ansa had grown distant too, his eyes searching for his old friend. Nene avoided conversation, unsure of how to fix what had cracked between them. She was still stung by how Jimi had pushed her away, by how close he had gotten to Afua. But change often comes in quiet steps. One afternoon, Jimi found Ansa painting behind the art block, his favorite place. The canvas was half filled with blues and grays, stormy skies and lonely rooftops. "That one looks how I feel," Jimi said softly. Ansa looked up, his expression unreadable. "Took you long enough to come back?" Jimi nodded. "I'm sorry." There wasn't a dramatic moment, no hugs or outbursts, just the two of them sitting on the concrete ledge, watching paint dry in silence. And that silence was enough. Nene took longer. She was cautious, wary. She'd been hurt by Jimi's neglect, by his arrogance, by the whirlwind he brought with him when everything fell apart. But one morning, Jimi waited by her classroom door with a small note in his hand. It read, "I messed up, but you've always been the light when things got dark. I'd like to try again as your friend." She didn't say anything, just nodded once, and that was all it took to begin again. The final term crept in. Exams loomed, and students dove into textbooks like lifeboats. Jimi threw himself into his studies, not for praise, not for competition, but to prove to himself he could still rise. With Ansa and Nene by his side, the weight on his shoulders began to ease. He visited Miss Novi one last time after class, nervous but determined. "I want to say thank you," he said. She smiled. "You're welcome, Jimi. You've been through more than most. And you're still standing." "She deserved better," he said. "She'll find better," Miss Novi replied. The final exams came and went, long nights of cramming, sweaty palms, pens scratching paper. When it was over, the school exploded with laughter, relief, and the joy of freedom. Graduation day arrived like a dream. The school hall was packed with proud parents, clapping teachers and students in polished uniforms. Principal Malum gave a speech. Awards were handed out. And though Jimi didn't win the best all-round student, he earned a scholarship to study engineering. He smiled, not because of what he had won, but because of what he had endured. Ansa was accepted into architecture school. Nene announced she would pursue accounting. They hugged in the hallway, the three of them standing beneath a poster that read, "Your future begins today." Later, as students scattered to take photos and say their goodbyes, Jimi stood at the edge of the field, watching the sun dip behind the buildings of Forcados High. It wasn't perfect. He'd lost things, made mistakes, let people down. But he had also grown. And somewhere out there, Efua Koka was starting again too. Maybe one day they'd meet again, not as the broken versions of themselves, but as the people they had become, stronger, wiser, whole.